Hi everyone, welcome to the Tech and Tell podcast. I'm your host Jacinta Fabi, also a product designer. And yeah, today we'll be discussing a topic that's at the very heart of product design, and that's on the topic of accessibility and inclusion. And I'm really excited to have another product designer joining me for this conversation. And this is someone that understands the importance of, building products that are not just functional, but usable and also inclusive for different kinds of users. Welcome, Emmanuel. Really glad to have you here on the call.
Hi, Jacinta. It's a pleasure also having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so but before we get into it, I just want to put this out there that this conversation isn't about designers trying to be perfect or knowing every accessibility guideline by heart. It's really about building awareness, also improving, decision making and understanding how small design choices can remove barriers. And I also think a lot of designers, genuinely want to create accessible experiences, but sometimes we don't know where to start, we don't know what to prioritize, and we also don't know how to balance accessibility, with product constraints and also business goals. So yeah, hopefully this conversation would help, make the topic feel more approachable and more practical for us designers. Um, yeah, so Emmanuel, let's start with the basics. Let's start with getting to know you. So can you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your journey into product design and yeah, any other information you'd like to share with us on that topic?
All right. Once again, thank you, Jacinta, for having me. My name is Emmanuel. Most of my friends call me ST, and I've been designing for over 6 years now.
Oh,
During the course of my years of experience, I've had the privilege to work across various industries, ranging from retail, edtech, software, healthcare, even AI related products and such products in general, just to mention a few.
yeah.
My product into product design started from the problem solving mindset. I was initially drawn to understanding how digital experience influence user behavior and business outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I think I started with graphic design. I think I did that for about 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't for long, but along the way, I got interested into seeing how things work on the digital side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I transitioned to product design because I realized that those products are not just visually appealing, they solve real life problems. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
real issues in ways that are very intuitive, accessible, and meaningful to users. And this has shaped my career. What has shaped my career mostly with startups and organizations to
Yeah.
build product from idea to execution. And the beautiful part of it is having to have discovery calls with stakeholders to understand what exactly the problem is,
Mm-hmm.
learning that this is the actual problem they want to solve, and really working with such team and from the very addition process to a point of seeing real life users using the product. And that's the most exciting thing about shaping
Yeah.
a digital product.
Mm-hmm.
So just a quick summary about me, about
Yeah.
career and how far I've gone
Yeah.
in the digital space.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing that with us. You mentioned you started up as a graphics designer. Do you still do that on the side, like graphics design and product design, or you are now like fully a product designer?
Okay, I'm going to dive into that a bit. So actually, I just did that for I think about 6 months or so.
Oh,
Primarily, I used to be an artist. I draw, like,
oh, okay.
and I've always been fascinated by art, and then get to learn about digital products. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
want to see how things look like on the digital side. That's why I picked up graphic design at first. So I did that for I think 6 months. Yeah, 6 months or
Mm-hmm.
so. I didn't really
Oh,
delve much into it.
oh,
During the course of after learning that, doing that for 6 months, got interested in in designing digital product instead. Like, oh, okay, it seems to be something about digital product that I can't really find in designing graphics. So
Yeah.
that was where the interest came in, and that
Mhm.
was when I made the switch. So I did that for just 6 months. For just six
Oh,
months.
okay, okay. That's interesting. Yes, but thank you for sharing that all the same. Yeah, so let's really get into the topic of today. So, the topic of today, as you know, is designing better products through accessibility and inclusion. So, if we would want to start from the basics, what would you say accessibility means in product design context? What would you say that means from your own point of view?
Okay, to me, I'm just going to give a very short definition. So, I mean, in very simple terms, accessibility simply means usability without limitation. This is what I
Yeah.
mean. So basically, if you look at accessibility in the last page, we're talking about designing products that can be used effectively and efficiently by as many people as possible,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of their abilities, their limitation, or even environment, and sometimes circumstance and situation.
Yeah.
And the major thing is most times people won't talk about accessibility. People always look at disability, but that's not the case all the time. You know, yes, it includes designing for people with visual impairment, can be even hearing or motor, or sometimes cognitive impairment, but it also considers temporary limitation. Let me give a sample. For
Okay.
instance, take for example now, I want to use a video streaming platform,
Mm-hmm.
and let's look at YouTube as a case study. I want to watch a video on YouTube, and for some circumstance, I mean, I am in a loud environment, and I needed to watch that video at that particular time, and because I'm in a loud environment,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not able to watch that video. And because YouTube has features such as I can enable the caption. So definitely I do not need to hear what the person is speaking is saying, or what the video, what the actual or the audio of the video, and literally with the caption I can get to catch along with the video. So
Yeah.
that is situation, that is circumstance. So I'm just trying to say that accessibility generally does not, the way people look at it is not just about disability. So when we talk about accessibility, we're not just talking about disability. It might be a situation, it might be a
Mm-hmm.
circumstance, or it might be even environmental factor. So at
Yeah.
its core, accessibility is about, it's basically about removing friction, whatever can be a friction, whatever can be an edge case, and also ensuring that whatever digital products we're trying to design, we're designing for as many people as possible.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like your own perspective. And I think that's like the general perspective as well. The general notion about accessibility designing for like everyone so that everyone can also like benefit from a certain product experience. But
Mhm.
thinking about this further, how do you think accessibility contributes to a better user experience overall? Having, putting all of this together, having designing for like, everyone, how do you think that contributes to a better user experience?
Okay, generally, accessibility improves visibility for everyone. So, when we talk of good digital products, for example, when we say a digital product is a good product, we're talking
Yeah.
about three key elements, and
Okay.
that's talking about visibility, talking
Yeah.
about talking about that means that product is useful, that product is usable, and that product is accessible. And when we say a product is usable, it means that people can easily navigate it and people can easily use it. And
Yeah.
when we say a product is useful, it means that it is solving a problem. And when a product is accessible, it means that it can be used by a large group of people. So there's no look at accessibility without talking about usability. And
Yeah.
when we usability, yes, we literally mean that a product is useful. But when you bring the context of accessibility, it means that the product is useful without any limitation. So
Mm.
irrespective of your background, irrespective of your ethnicity, I mean, people can literally use the product. So, for example, now, let's say we have a digital product and it has clear navigation, which benefits not just visually impaired users, but anyone trying to complete a task can easily use that product, or even good color contrast. So, when we design digital products, a lot of factors we need to consider. Ensuring that the color contrast are good. It helps users even in bright sunlight. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, this scenario where a user is using this product, depending on, so in mobile phones, there's no called PPI. I think it's called density. So take for example now, if you're using an high-end mobile phone, let's say a Samsung or an iPhone that has good PPI.
Mm-hmm.
So as a product designer, these are things you consider also, and there are also users that are going to use this product, they're going to be using mobile phones with low PPIs. So I'm not going to mention names on mobile phone now, so it will sound like a shade. I mean,
Yeah.
because there will be situations where you might just get to design a product, test it on an high-end mobile phone, and then it might be a problem for those using low-end mobile phones because the color contrast might appear poor, or might be too bright. So
Yeah.
these are circumstances that we have to always consider as designers. And when products are accessible, they become easier to understand. They are
Yeah.
more intuitive, less frustrated to whoever is using the product. And in many ways, accessibility also pushes teams to simplify experience, which also leads to better retention,
Mm-hmm.
even engagement and satisfaction
Mm.
for all users. And this
Mm.
does not even apply to just design alone. We can even look at this when we talk of physical products. So take for example, we have group of people using a pedestrian bridge, for example, and if you use a pedestrian bridge, in most situations you see that you have to climb a staircase. And look at a
Mm-hmm.
situation where some that is in a wheelchair is trying to use a pedestrian bridge, right?
Yeah.
And you as an architect, now you built it using staircase alone, and that's going to
Mhm.
be a problem. That's going to be a question for such users because it's not
Yeah.
going to be easy using a wheelchair on a
Mm.
pedestrian that is really accessible by people that are too late. So
Yeah.
that's why you always have to consider. And there's a situation where you see pedestrian where there's an option for those that do not want to use the staircase, and they
Mm-hmm.
can easily use their wheelchair. So
Mm.
accessibility always is just always about considering all users
Mm.
diverse, and in as much as accessibility is considered, it makes the experience easier for users, no matter what the circumstance. So it's it's in general, it improves the overall experience of using the products when accessibility is considered.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that very extensive response. And I like the fact that you also delved a bit into like, real world scenarios and not just focusing on the digital aspect of it. You also talked about, the real world experience with the use of pedestrian bridge and, considering people on wheelchairs as well. And I also picked up on the fact that you said it can also influence success metrics, at the end of the day in terms of retention, customer satisfaction, revenue, and all of that. So yeah, those are like really, really great points in terms of, how accessibility is contributing to like better user, experience overall. But another thing or another question would be that why do you think why do you think inclusive design and accessible design is now like so important today? Why do you think people are now really talking about it? Why do you think there's a wave of that going on now today? Why is that so important?
Okay. If we look at technology, I mean, in general, I mean, every sector you look at, whether healthcare, finance, education, and even work environment in general, even when work environment, the work tools that we use,
Mm-hmm.
that and also communication channels, right? It's not just even when you work in the work environment, the communication channels such as Slack that you just communicate and all that. So digital products has become an essential part of everyday life because technology has become essential to everyday life. I mean,
Yeah.
even how about even living in an urban area or rural areas. So there's always a digital product that is solving a problem, irrespective of where people are or
Yeah.
irrespective of what you do,
Mm-hmm.
irrespective of what you're into, whatever business or whatever sector you work.
Mm-hmm.
So people now depend on digital product for education, for healthcare, like I said earlier. If these products are not accessible, we
Mm-hmm.
unintentionally exclude many of people from opportunities and services. I mean, for using these products.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one reason why inclusive and accessible design is so important today, because a lot of users, a lot of people are now using digital products. And
Mm-hmm.
just like irrespective of where you are, whether in an urban area or rural area.
Mm-hmm.
And if you also look at today's users, which are incredibly diverse, we're designing for different ages, I mean, different cultural group, different literal levels.
Mm-hmm.
So digital products are not just designed for, all the literal ones. I mean, people that go to school. I mean, we have people that do not go to school using digital products, we have people that go to school using digital products. Irrespective of where you are in the world, whether you're in China, whether you are, there's no limitation to say, oh, this particular set of people are not should not use digital products. So we're
Yeah.
designing used by all diverse users, diverse people, different background, different ethnicity, and all
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's always important to always, consider inclusive and accessibility when we design, so that on the long run, you will not be designing a product that will just be functional and will not be able to, will not be usable by a lot of people. And also from the business perspective, and accessibility also expand market reach, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Take for example, you design for a particular target audience. So if you include accessibility and inclusivity, it means that your products can definitely reach more people. The very good context is okay. A lot of you have a product, you have a digital product design, and or you can easily switch from one language to another. So it means that
Yeah.
people in a particular region can easily just switch language and as well use the product. So you're not limiting it to just a particular set of people. So, and this also improves trust and help in organizations to create products with long-lasting relevance.
Mm.
So, today's world, there's no way we're talking about digital products. I'm not talking about inclusiveness and
Yeah.
accessibility. It is essential.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's very, very essential. Yeah, and I agree also with the fact that a lot of things are going digital now in today's world. And a lot of people are also, tapping into utilizing technology and digital products to like make their lives easier and a lot of things easier. And that's why at the start of the podcast, I, mentioned that today's topic is at the heart of product design, right? Because it won't be fair for us as product designers to also design products and not factor in, this other group of people and also how they can, leverage technology, as well. So yeah, thank you very much for that insightful response. But okay, so now that we know that accessibility is booming, is in it's so important for today's digital world. Um, how early do you think accessibility should be introduced now in the product design process or product development process so that we can get the best out of it? How early should that be introduced?
As early as possible, actually. I mean, ideally from the discovery process, the moment you have a discovery call with the stakeholders,
Yeah.
accessibility should be introduced.
Mm-hmm.
First, you have your discovery call, try to understand who the target audience are, where exactly we're designing this product and for. And at the same time, the fact that you did not want to limit this product, this digital product to just the target audience. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
introduce accessibility. And this ensures that inclusive design comes with it. And if this design is inclusive, to all users. So
Yeah.
accessibility should not be treated like a final checklist. We should not
Yeah.
be designing products where okay, probably one we're done and we're just iterating. So during the iteration process, we might say, oh, let's consider accessibility. And it should not be done
Yeah.
like that. It should be introduced at a very early stage.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be at every point of your product development cycle. So when teams wait until the end, fitness ability should become very expensive at 10% because in the long run, if you then pursue accessibility at the point where you're about to launch, where you're doing your final iteration. Things might become expensive because a lot of things have been done, a lot of processes have been done, and when
Mm-hmm.
you now start looking at accessibility, then by the time you check it, by the time you do a cross check of your list, you see that you have to go back and you do a lot of things. So instead of
Yeah.
doing that, which might sometimes be cost effective, it's better to introduce accessibility at a very early stage. And I'm talking about this should even influence your user research,
Mm-hmm.
should influence your persona, your journey mapping, your information architecture, and even
Yeah.
your wireframes.
Hmm.
So, and also your UI decisions. When you're designing, you need to think outside the box. So, the funny thing about accessibility is it's always unintentional. You don't. It's not like you intentionally keep out some things, or but in the long run, it's an unintentional mistake. You
Mm.
unintentionally leave out several people. So even when you're doing a UI edition, making a UI edition, you're informing your research, even your development standard, or even doing QA testing. And it's across board. It's not just even relating to just design alone. So
Mm-hmm.
even every other team members, I mean, I'm talking about QA, I'm talking about developers, always need to consider accessibility. So as early as possible, the
Mm-hmm.
earlier accessibility becomes part of the progression, the more natural it integrates into the product. So as early as possible, from the very early stage, accessibility should be introduced.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think I also picked up on something you said about how other cross-functional teams should also pick up on accessibility, the QAs, the developers, and even product managers and all. So how do you think that designers and developers now, or these cross-functional team members, can collaborate better on accessibility?
Okay, so accessibility works better when it becomes a shared responsibility, right?
Okay.
Rather than being owned by just design or
Mm-hmm.
engineering, So it should be seen as a shared responsibility. And this is what I mean. So designers should clearly document accessibility expectation. So as a designer, right?
Okay.
You have your expectation, things like things you need to work watch out for, like your contrast ratio, your focus state, I mean, your component behavior, your interaction pattern, considering the diverse set of users that are going to be using your product. And also on the developer side, they should be involved as early as possible so as
Okay.
to discuss technical feasibility and implementation best practice. Because once
Yeah.
all of these have been stated earlier and developers are aware, they can see all this documentation, they can come
Mm.
in as early as possible to discuss, okay, what are the things that are going to be technically fixable? What are the things that that will build comes to when it comes to implementation? And also, one other thing is regular communication. So regular communication between each team members regarding accessibility
Yeah.
and also following standards. So when it comes to accessibility, there are standards that the team must follow, such as WCAG, that's a Web Controls Accessibility Standard. So it's a very common thing with every team. Teams always follow these to make sure that the products are accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Accessibility testing together can also significantly improve outcome. So it should not be a one-man team. I mean, should not be something done by the designer. I mean, the team should do this. So when we're
Yeah.
doing a usability test, we should also consider accessibility test, which should be done by all team members. Then the best teams are, treat accessibility as part of product quality. And not just an optional enhancement, meaning that just like we discussed earlier, so it should
Mhm.
not be a thing that come at the last phase of the product development cycle. It should be treated as part of the things that makes a product a quality product.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it should be a team thing, not just a
Yeah.
product design team.
Yeah, yeah, I also agree that every member of, the product team, even cross-functional team should always take, not just product designers, they should also always have accessibility in mind. Yeah, so I just notified that we have less than 9 minutes left. So but we still have
Okay.
like just few questions to go. I think about two. Um so what are some challenges that we as designers face when we are trying to make technology, more accessible and more inclusive? So we want to design products that are accessible, right? But then there are some challenges that we as designers, encounter on along the way. So what are some of these challenges that you've noticed?
What challenge is I think is basically the lack of awareness or
Okay.
education and accessibility. So this is what I mean. Awareness in terms of you understand your target audience, you
Mm-hmm.
know that okay, designing for a particular age group, or there's a point of understanding the set of users you're designing for and
Mm-hmm.
being aware of the users you're designing for. Okay, you clearly get the area that you're designing for age group between 50 to 70 years. So even though you're not in that age bracket and you're the designer working in that product, you need to be
Mm-hmm.
only aware. That's why you need to carry out intensive research. You need to be aware of the level of users you're designing for. And so usually it's an awareness problem. So an awareness problem. Another challenge is balancing business priorities and timeline. And
Mm-hmm.
so in most situations, teams often feel pressure to always they want to ship quickly, they want to get this done, as soon as possible. And in most times, accessibility is always seen as something that can come later. So they just always just iterate on the product. Okay, the product functional, is it solving a problem? And
Mm-hmm.
then when you get to the market, you then realize that okay, this product is functional, but a lot of people can still not use it, even though it is
Mm-hmm.
functional, right? It is
Yeah.
solving the problem, it is functional, but it is useful and it is not accessible. So there's a thin line between those terms and
Mm-hmm.
technologies. And the major thing is, teams always want to work with time, they want to get things done quickly, and always end up treating accessibility as a last thing, or they see it as a secondary thing that okay, it's going to come later, it's something to do later. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one major challenge. Also, the challenge of designing for diverse needs without overcomplicating the experience. Even at the times when you are aware, okay, I'm aware of the users, like, these are the set of users on the way I'm designing for. And, because you are fully aware, we can also be overly aware. And because
Mm-hmm.
you're overly aware, you keep on, okay, consuming, and, what about this, what about this? And then on the long run, you are already complicating the experience. So because the
Yeah.
goal is to simplify the experience. Accessibility testing itself can be difficult if teams do not involve diverse users or rely only on assumption. The times when I always say assumption is a very bad call because times we just assume that, oh, okay, this user will do it. It's always a bad call. So
Yeah.
the right thing is, try as much as possible to get diverse users doing accessibility tests, make sure they test the progress,
Yeah.
get actual feedbacks, and then work on those feedbacks with also with the progress.
Yeah.
And I believe progress starts with intentionality. I mean,
Yeah.
even small improvements makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Emmanuel. That was a very insightful response. And I like what you said about creating awareness. And yeah, that's why, we are here this morning to create that awareness and, spread the word and let people know more about accessibility and how they can include that also in their workflow. I also like what you said about usability, having those tests before launching the products, testing with the actual users, the actual people that are in that group basically. and
Mhm.
testing with them first to, get feedback and then later, improve the products based on their feedback. Yeah, I think that that covers much of like most of our questions because of time. So I think we can bring it to a close for today. And this has been such a very, very, very valuable conversation with Emmanuel. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your thoughts as well. And I think one major, takeaway is that from all of this is that, accessibility accessible and inclusive products, and not just about usable products, just as Emmanuel said, is like a, whole different conversation I know about accessibility. And also it's accessible products are also part of what, makes a product truly usable, and thoughtful. And even, small improvements in awareness can also lead to better experiences for people. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for sharing your thoughts and your insights. Thank you so much. Yeah, and
Yeah,
if
thank
you're
you, Jessica. It's nice having this conversation with you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you're listening, I hope this conversation encourages you to, think a little more intentionally, like Emmanuel has said, it's about intention, being intentional, um, thinking more intentionally about the people on the other side of the products that, that we design. And please, if you found this episode helpful, feel free to share it with another product designer. Until then, see you in the next episode. Bye.